Mike Thornton is in Alpha. Protocol. Wet work, warfare, and women are all just part of the job, and Mike never stops working. Unlike Mike, I did not find myself shooting my way through foreign countries in 2010. Instead, I was blessed with one of the greatest years of gaming ever. Fresh off playing through Mass Effect 1 for the first time a year earlier, I found myself dancing around the Normandy in Mass Effect 2 in January. A few short months later, I was on the lawless frontier, getting into bar fights as John Marston. In that very same year, I was wandering the Mojave for the first time and witnessing the fall of Reach. I won't even mention the cultural phenomenon of rhythm games that were still going crazy at the time, or the countless hours of indie games I played like Super Meat Boy and Limbo. The point is, 2010 was an insane year of video games, and getting to play all those titles condensed into 1 year meant that I missed a lot of other games in that time period. Bayonetta, Super Mario Galaxy 2, MAG, BioShock 2, Metro 2033, all games that I remember hearing about at the time, but never got to play. But there was one game that I knew was releasing, and I knew I wanted to play. Alpha Protocol, spy thriller RPG with the corniest, edgy jokes and action set pieces one could imagine. This is peak 13-year-old boy fantasy, and I wanted to trot the globe as a suave spy making choices that impact the world around me. Alas, convincing my parents to dump even more money into games that year was not something I could accomplish. The video rental store never got a copy, and when we got the insane service that was GameFly for a month, my brother wasted it on the Army of Two sequel, I think. Albeit, there were surely some fun co-op times we had there. Either way, my hopes of being a suave spy were halted. Cut to 2026, Marathon is out, and I've done nearly 200 hours into it in the first month. Last year, I played through the Metal Gear series for the first time and followed it up with a foray into a bit of Splinter Cell, so when I was looking for something to be a bit of a reprieve from losing all my loot, I was reminded of yet another spy thriller game that I never got around to. Alpha Protocol, and it was even on sale on GOG. Sale. So I decided to dip my toes back into 2010, having only ever heard good things about it, being a cult classic with tons of player-driven choice and intrigue. I honestly had it in my head that it was going to be tonally similar to Mass Effect 2, but with a more grounded military focus. Oh boy, was that wrong. This game is ridiculous, and if my memory of the writing in Mass Effect games is accurate at all, then this is not that in any way. Every single character is bizarre, and they communicate as though they are the most disgruntled side character in a Mission Impossible movie. It is so comically absurd that the suave, sarcastic, joking responses are the only dialogue options that feel like they make any sense, given that everyone around you is out of their minds. Despite this, once I understood that this game was going to give a less refined version of nearly everything that I expected, I found myself having quite a good time. The dialogue and choices are probably the standout systems, and a lot of games that are choice-driven today probably don't attempt to have as many combinations of choices as Alpha Protocol does. Because the game only really has 3 locations, each with a handful of missions outside of the game's intro, it feels like you are constantly being introduced to characters and making decisions that affect the subsequent missions. Who's your handler? Who's fighting alongside you? Who lives? Who dies? What resources are available to you? What is the news talking about on your TV? Every system is purpose-built to show you the effect you're having on the world around you. And it's such a strange contrast to what the actual game is. The missions themselves are linear shooting or stealth galleries, depending on how you want to approach them, with a handful of side objectives that offer XP or money. In between these standard missions, you'll have conversation missions that are purely discussions with people that consistently offer bizarre exchanges between those supposedly in high-stakes situations. Despite the game being on this set track and not having any open-world locations or even hub areas that you can do stuff in, really, the effects of your choices are on greater display because the game is able to directly account for each of those decisions without having to calculate a million things like in a more open game. The game tone also helps reinforce that the decisions are the main goal as well. Starting out, everything is over the top in its seriousness. The event that incites the story is a terrorist group shooting down a civilian plane. You literally hear a baby crying on board, and then it is blasted out of the air. The whiplash to fighting your way through the top-secret spy headquarters that you've just been jumped into is absurd, and it's punctuated by meeting the most comical versions of spy team characters. Disgruntled old man who hates you, woman the character is trying to sleep with, and tech guy who is committing sex crimes at work. This feels disjointed at first, but as the game progresses, it snowballs into a hilarity that feels right at home for this genre. Some clear Kojima inspiration with teenage girls dual-wielding Uzis, and boss fights with coked-out party guys, while some Splinter Cell inspiration with the constant flow of the TV news channel information delivery and real-world-esque conflict. A spy thriller is a lot of the time about the twists and turns, and Alpha Protocol doesn't really do anything that will shock you, but it meets the expectation of having nearly every new entity having intentions and goals that aren't necessarily apparent right away. You and the terrorists ultimately have a common enemy. The love interest isn't telling the truth. The arms dealer double-crosses you, etc. Lackluster, but once again, seeing the combinations of choices you made directly impacting these basic premises is fun. The gameplay itself is, well, not very good. Weapons are horrible to shoot, stealth is incredibly overpowered, the gadgets are 99% unnecessary, every single boss fight is cut and paste the same. It's kind of funny, honestly. You go from fighting a top-tier assassin, a cokehead, an old operative, and they all literally have the exact same moveset. Harass you with slightly stronger gun, summon some goons, 3-hit combo if you get close, that does an absurd amount of damage. This ultimately leads to the beat everything strategy of upgrade handgun skill, which stops time and lets you shoot them in the head a few times at no cost, and then flee for your life until the ability recharges. The gameplay isn't satisfying, but I would say that stealthing through the levels is like a kind of dumbed down version of Splinter Cell, and when you combine the RPG elements, it's pretty unique, I guess. I would say that I don't recommend playing this game now. Check out Metal Gear if you want absurd espionage, check out Mass Effect or Fallout if you want an older RPG, but there is one thing that happened while playing this game that made it so comically enjoyable of an experience that I don't regret my time playing. The entire time I played, I was an unbelievably horrible asshole. I equipped my soul patch and backwards hat at the beginning of the game, realized that X was the suave sarcasm button, and I never looked back. I became Alpha, X Games, Mountain Dew, motorcycle, whatever a 13-year-old boy thought was cool, that's what I was doing. The most insufferable, violent douchebag that I could be. And honestly, it felt pretty in line with what the game wanted to see. The tone of the emails and the juvenile humor that was injected into everything was a perfect backdrop to the ridiculously uncaring serial murderer that I was set out to roleplay as. Let the guy live who killed the baby in the beginning of the game? Check. Shoot the guy at the gelato shop who rubs a kebab on his head and then say,
I thought he was going for a weapon.
Check. I mean, I really chose every scummy option that you could. And I lived like I was the worst iteration of Deadpool. All of this until the final section of the game, where I went to Taipei. There's a mission there, to meet another operative. I say operative, but this guy is so under the radar that there doesn't seem to be any verifiable proof that he is even an agent anywhere. I did every mission I could before meeting this guy. Once again, fully as a sarcastic sociopath. And then I meet Stephen Heck. Stephen is one of the most unlikable characters ever put into a video game. You meet him literally torturing someone. I'm not even kidding. As I was writing this, I discovered that Stephen is voiced by none other than Nolan North, so I guess props to him for being a part of whatever the fuck this character is. Either way, you meet him literally torturing someone for no reason. He's a violent freelance intelligence operative that only speaks in psychotic decrees of violence and unfunny one-liners. I did everything in my power to get rid of this guy. I intentionally clicked every dialogue option that I thought he would hate. In a mission where you're given a side objective to help him by erasing his data from an Intel terminal, I went out of my way to avoid the XP that I would get for doing that, just so my reputation with him would go down and maybe he would stop showing up. I finally get to the end of the game, aptly titled Endgame, and I realize something. Stephen Heck is karma. It's the game literally holding up a mirror to every action I had made up to this point and saying, look at the shit that you left on the carpet and feel bad. Stephen was exactly the character I had been role-playing as for the past 13 hours, and I hated him. He wasn't funny, he wasn't cool, he had nothing interesting to say. All I wanted was for him to go away. So, with the final few decisions I had left, I turned a new leaf. I gave the details to the reporters so that in case something went bad while I was assaulting the organization that turned against me, the news of the evil Halbeck Corporation could still get out. I partnered with that terrorist guy to expose the truth about the dirty dealings of this intelligence world, and I told my love interest Mina to stay back from this mission as I needed to ascend from my childish ways and fight to protect the people who actually sought to do good in this world. And guess what I discovered when I went to do that final mission? With Mina safely hiding while I undertook this suicide mission, and every other person I interacted with either dead or hating me, I was left with only one choice to be my handler in the final act of the game. Stephen fucking Heck. Everything I did to turn things around and avoid ultimately becoming the thing I despised most was for naught. I had to listen to this corny serial killer for the entirety of the final mission. And oh, guess what? Mina was a double agent asshole who betrayed me. I kill the group of weirdos we met at the beginning of the game, defeat the big bad Halbeck Corporation, and guess what I'm rewarded with at the end of the game? I sail off into the sunset, Resident Evil 4 style. But who's that? Not Ashley sitting on the back of my jet ski, but fucking Stephen Heck. Living out my personal hell as a result of the accumulation of asshole decisions I made along the way. Was it a great story? Not particularly. Was it a very engaging gameplay loop? Nope. Did it offer something that I hadn't experienced in other earlier games? Not really. But did it provide an experience where I genuinely felt like the culmination of my decisions resulted in an ending uniquely suited for the character I roleplayed as? Absolutely. And I don't know of another experience that has done that with such accuracy in any other game.
Yeah, I work for a division of the CIA that doesn't officially exist. Super secret. They just kind of turned me loose and let me go nuts. You know that in the 1960s, the CIA surgically jammed a mic and antenna into a cat?